Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Eddie Marcus again. The truth of the matter is, I am so tired of making these videos. The reason I'm so tired is because I've been doing it for so long. I've been doing it for a few years. And sometimes I find the messages coming to me so rapidly, I might have to do 2 or 3 videos a day and then post them. And what are the videos for? They are to try to inform the people that hear these videos or who might run across them, to inform them that they are under siege, to let them know that everything basically they're doing is against life. And it started some time ago. I'm 67 years old now, ladies and gentlemen. This started about when I was 27 years old. 27 years old, I was working for the Veterans Administration. Guys were coming back from Vietnam. I was advising them on any benefits that they might have. I was doing this also for their survivors if they were killed, or dependents if they had dependents. And I also did a lot of liaison audits between businesses that were connected with the Veterans Administration through some form or fashion. In that process, I saw a lot of things that opened my eyes to things I had closed my eyes to. Things I knew when I was a kid, just growing up, it just was obvious. But as you mature and try to get caught up in the lifestyle of things, you put it on the side and just want to enjoy your part. I think most people do that. Not all people, but most people do that. When they say, well, I'm 18 now, or I'm 21, I'm a man, I can do what I want to do, I can leave home, I can do what I want to do. Even when you thought you were raised up proper, you're still going to do what you want to do. And most of you do that. Some of you still try to stick to basic principles, which are really no good, because it's all caught up in a fool's game. Now, what am I saying to you, ladies and gentlemen? I'm saying that early in that life, when I realized that I'd better switch back to real instead of fake, and I really saw things that made me ashamed of human beings, the kind of things that made me ashamed as I was growing up, to watch people go to church and talk about how fantastic God was, but you never saw any fantasticness in the lives of people. You just go to church and talk about how fantastic God is, talk about how people who know God are supposed to act, and most people would do, based upon how they described it, say treat people like you want to be treated, try not to lie, but people lied, and they treated people who they felt that they didn't mind treating okay. The ones they felt they didn't want to treat okay, they didn't treat them okay. So everything was just phony to me. And as I saw these guys coming back out of Vietnam, saw them had sacrificed most of their lives, saw the families what they were going through, the guys that didn't come back who were receiving benefits, but nothing that would offer what was planned from the grand design. So I decided that I saw the problem and I saw potential solutions. So rather than just waste my life looking at problems, I dedicate my life for solutions. Well, the first thing I found out, you've heard me say this 1,000 times, that when you're going to dedicate yourself to make solutions, you've got to separate yourself from the problem. And so I had been a part of the problem. Now I was going to get out of the problem, but I found out I basically created a different problem. Make a long story short, my wife was caught up in the system, as we all were. And because I was trying to get out of the system, she lost interest in me. And she divorced me. And it kind of blew my spirit. But she did anyway. So I learned a lesson, even though I had seen and knew that people, as a social scientist, get married and get divorced and all these kinds of things. I didn't think it would happen to me. And it did happen to me, just like it happened to anybody else. So I recognized that taking vows and stuff like that didn't really mean stuff. You can do it in the name of God. You can have witnesses all around. It didn't mean nothing. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, it did not mean a thing. A thing. Not to the people who broke the vow or the state who called themselves sanctioning it at one time. When you went to get that divorce, sign on the dotted line, you're through. So that was because I saw something that was better than what my eyes had visualized. And this is what I wanted to see, the things that was in my mind. And so I began to go out and do that. I ended up going to the military. First of all, you've heard me say this before, not to fight anybody, not to kill anybody, but thinking that war might break out, I might get killed. So this woman who I had made this vow to, that I wouldn't let poverty or sickness separate us, and apparently poverty was what her fear was. So I just decided to give up my life, go out there and get killed, let her get that little $20,000 check. I think they gave you $20,000 back in those days for dying. And maybe she could live for another year off that $20,000, depending, she worked. So depending upon how she used it, she can get another year out of my life, worthwhile. But it didn't happen like that. I'm still here. But having come out of the military, I decided to try to pursue ways of introducing a message to the public that they weren't receiving. So I started running for mayor in Itta Bena, Mississippi. I had been living in Chicago for 10 years. After I came out of the military from Japan, I moved back to Mississippi where most of my relatives were. And I started working at a university out there called Mississippi Valley State University as a recruiter. And some of the old school people who knew me from my youth suggested that I run for mayor of Itta Bena. And so I gave it some consideration, but as I was considering it, I ran across a guy who never left Itta Bena, who ran a business. And he thought it didn't make sense that folks who would try to get me to run for mayor, Eddie Marcus, who had been out of the state for so many years and now coming back, why would they want to make him mayor instead of the guy who was running a business? So he decided he wanted to become the competition. I had no stomach for competition. The only reason I wanted to run for mayor is to tell people about freedom, about life and how to live and how you can have all these wonderful things. But competing for this and that as business people do was nothing that I wanted to deal with. So I left that alone. Make a long story short, I resigned from working at the University of Mississippi Valley State University and moved to Minnesota. Now, moving to Minnesota was a little bit different than what I had been doing in Mississippi. In Mississippi, I needed a little job to make some money to eat, to feed myself. I came to Minnesota, and my plan was to do the same thing or just rake leaves, wash some storefront windows, do some, you park down the street, I'll clean your windows to get some change. I wasn't trying to make a living. I wasn't trying to make a living because I know what that's all about. But I didn't want to live alone, and I saw a girl once in the church preaching, and I thought she would be the answer to that helpmate that I would need. And so I pursued her. Make a long story short, we ended up getting married. Now, she knew at the time that I was trying to make a difference in the world. I wasn't out there trying to get rich. I wasn't even out there trying to make it in the sense of the word. And yet I had convinced her that I would make it. But I wasn't going to make it, I was going to make it the new way that the Spirit had guided me to understand was the proper way. That Spirit was working with me, it wasn't working with her. So I guess she gave it a shot to see if it was going to work. But after 10, 15 years, she saw it wasn't working. So she started not trying to believe and hoping in it and started staying on the track that she and everybody else is on. Capitalism. Work your butt off by the sweat of your brows till you can't do no more. I never saw that. But I must say that it was through her working that the bills were paid, that the kids got to get school clothes and were fed and went back and forth to school. I couldn't support that effort because I had no money. I wasn't making any money. In fact, things got so tight once I decided to help, and I started working at Bethel University in Minnesota. But the job that I had then was washing dishes, and I was making $6 an hour. I remember the first raise I got was a dime. I worked at Bethel College, but Bethel College was not my contract. I worked for one of the hotel chains. I always forget the name of it. I keep thinking it starts with a C, but it doesn't. I keep thinking it starts with H. And whenever I use those two, it doesn't come up. But I can see it in my head. They got all kinds of hotels. That particular company, they got the Hyatt. They got a couple other hotels, but I just can't think of the name of it right now. Make a long story short, I ended up quitting that job because it put a couple of pennies in my pocket, but it did not aid me as far as trying to wake up the world, wake up America, wake up Minnesota. I was spending too much time washing dishes. I need to be talking to the people. So I ended up leaving that job. But I think if I'm remembering correctly, I also worked for Rothschilds. Now Rothschilds, many of you know, let me tell you something. Let me try to see if I can jump ahead to put this stuff in some kind of perspective. This is what I want you to know, ladies and gentlemen. The system that we live under democratic capitalist system. Democratic basically means that one person, one vote. It's not true. That's just a pretext to trick the people to think that you matter. Okay? Capitalism says that you got an evil playing field, that you can have free markets and you can trade and you can make money and stuff. That's what they feed you. That's what they feed you. And through dealing that way, certain little initiatives can be carried out. But the whole idea of the money operation is to take your focus off of one another. To take the focus off of what you mean to one another. And all of that, what you used to have compassion for and hope for, left. Because now you don't need people. All you need is money. So what you need to get money is a job. And what you need to get a job is be able to be bent and bound by a master, the one who controls that money or that job. You need to do that. Otherwise, to be a crook. A crook basically means someone who goes against the established order to provide for themselves what the order would not provide for them in the condition that they found themselves in. And so I decided to just focus on that, just to try to, and in doing that, ladies and gentlemen, you get hungry, you start looking for information, you start researching, you got the computers come up, internet open up, all kinds of information available. Then you run across people who have back in the day said, well, give me control of money and I care not. This guy was named Rothschild. I care not who makes the rules. Just give me control of money. In other words, you give me control of money, I will control the nations. I will control the nations by controlling the government. And I will control the government by making sure that the government cannot operate unless it got what I have and that they go through what I want them to go through in order to get the money. Now that's absolutely what was done. But I don't want you to think it just started a couple of 100 years ago or 150 years. It didn't just start. It started back in the beginning. To say, if I just give me the control of the money, that came over time. But they were saying it back in the beginning of time. Back in, we was talking about render to Caesar that which is Caesar. They were doing the same scam then. And then before Jesus came on the earth, for those of you who believe in Jesus, for those of you who don't believe in Jesus, It doesn't matter. The scheme was still going on, and it's going on today. Most people don't recognize it. Many of them do. I do. But even those that recognize it don't have a solution. And I have a solution. Nobody's listening, but I have a solution. So what am I saying? I'm saying to you, ladies and gentlemen, that nations have risen and they've fallen. The ability for them to rise was based upon their ability to rob people, to scam people, to take money from people, to take land from people, to take resources from people, and prop themselves up. Now, when the United States would do stuff like that, the people felt that they were being propped up, but they weren't. That was just a pretext. The people that were doing the damage was the one that was being propped up. And when the people got angry and wanted to fight back, then they were called upon us to put our kids into military form and a gun in their hand to go and fight. When they weren't fighting, they couldn't get education benefits. When they weren't fighting, they were limited to little health care. When they weren't fighting, all of these things that they got a little bit of because they fought and survived the fighting, they got. But before then, nothing. And so you end up with people dividing people, wondering, why don't I have this? How come I can't do this? Well, it must be another group of people over there, a different color, that's causing the problems. And what would happen is that the powers that would be, they put all kinds of disinformation out there, all type of propaganda out there to split people up, to divide people, not only in their social lives, but even in their religious lives. They divided them up into Catholicism and Protestants, and even divided those up into hundreds of little different groups. And everything was just split up. Because when it was split up like that, you couldn't work anything out, you couldn't fix a problem, you just became a tool to be used by what? The powers that be. And who are the powers that be? Whoever controls the money. Whoever controls the money. Now, what was my message? I remember the first time I started out, I had a mission called Love Ministry. Love. Life of victory eternal. Life of victory. When somebody tells you life of victory, what does that mean? That means you're going to have your dreams coming true. That means the things that you wanted to happen in your life is going to happen. Life of victory. That's what it means. But I talked and talked and talked and talked. Nobody was listening. And after a few years of that, I changed the subject from the life of victory eternal, even though the mission was the same, but I changed it to the moment of truth. Come here, ladies and gentlemen. Let me hit you with the moment of truth. And you come on that radio station and you would hear me talk about the moment of truth, what that moment of truth would do. It would lead you back to that idea of life of victory eternal. And what was that supposed to do? To wake you up. I did that for a few years, and as I looked around, I didn't see any effect of it. Then I decided to run for public office. I ran for mayor of the city of St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm going to introduce this wonderful plan to St. Paul. I lost. Then I decided to run for United States Senator from the state of Minnesota, taking it a step higher. I lost. Didn't even get out the front door. Nobody wanted to support the idea. Nobody. In the regular world, in the political world, in the church, nobody wanted to support it. But it didn't take away the truth of what I carried, so I ran for governor of the state of Minnesota, taking it a step higher. Well, I need not tell you, it's obvious I didn't do anything there. Still couldn't get anybody interested. Well, so the next thing, I wanted to be able to affect the whole nation, so I ran for president of the United States. And you know what happened there, the same old thing. So I gave up on that, and I spent a couple of times trying to get the people's attention. See, I figured the reason that I wasn't getting any place is because I wasn't getting the people's attention. So I decided to try something else to get the people's attention. I decided to commit crime and let the people know I committed this crime because I got some wonderful news for you, and I can't get you to listen. Now, I've committed this crime to let you know that the news that I got for you is so wonderful that I've committed this crime, knowing that if you don't listen to me, just like you haven't in the past, I will end up going to jail. They didn't listen. I went to jail. I came back out a few years later, tried to get attention, still trying to get attention all the time. Nothing happened. Then in 2000, when George Bush became president of the United States, and we all know what happened. The people did not choose George Bush. The powers that be used that system to put George Bush into the White House. So George Bush got into the White House. I didn't like that because I knew what that meant. I knew what George Bush was doing down in Texas as governor, how many people he was killing on death row. He didn't mind killing people. That's why he got that job. And so that was because people had another plan. They had planned on causing some trouble in America, and they wanted to use America to start some wars, to do some outside damage to countries outside of our borders. And they wanted to use the United States to do that. So they set up the World Trade Center, started that stuff. And that's why the reason why George Bush was in office. And the after effect, Iraq, and everybody that don't join us is against us. That was all about George. That was George. That's why they used George Bush. George Bush didn't come up with the plan. That was not an American plan. That was a power that be plan. What you might want to call it Council on Foreign Relations. They had a lot to do with that. The Trilateral Commission had a lot to do with that. The Bilderberg, all those people that you don't know anything about had a lot to do with that. And so now we're spearing off into a war. I did constantly still, I went to prison because I told George Bush that I wasn't going to settle for it. I was going to expose him in everything I saw him doing. How I, as I mentioned earlier, had already been in jail, and I was on paper. So once I wrote to George Bush and let him know that I was out here, they did a follow-up, found out I was on paper, violated me, and sent me to prison. So ladies and gentlemen, I really don't have anything really to brag on in my life as an adult, except my commitment for your freedom. And in my commitment to your freedom, I got 8 kids. 4 of them I have never done anything for. Never done anything for. I didn't buy them milk. I didn't buy them diapers. I didn't help their moms out. I didn't do anything. I couldn't afford it. The 4 kids that I did have something to do with, what it was doing was dressing them, getting them back and forth to school, fixing their meals, seeing that they got what they needed at home, stuff like this, because I had no money. I was still out there trying to make this difference in the world that was having no real impact. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as I sit here today, thinking about Donald Trump and what Donald Trump is trying to do to the people, thinking about what is happening in other parts of the world and what's going down, and my head started going in circles trying to just figure out all the junk that's going on. It's too much. It's too much to figure out. They start telling you what plans that the Rothschilds got, or the New World Order got for this year or that year, and it's just too much. So I'm tired of it. So all I want to do, ladies and gentlemen, I'm even tired of coming talking to you. My head is tired. My feet are tired. My mouth is tired of talking for nothing. But I want to tell you once again, as an individual, forget your immediate family. Forget your friends, everybody. I want to talk to you as an individual. You as an individual was put here on this earth that you had nothing to do with creating. And this earth is a magnificent baby that is able to do anything that man has needed or required of it and reached out for it. It has been able to produce what it is supposed to produce. And the intellect that men had that would allow them to comprehend what had to be done came from the creative power that is responsible for men being on earth. And each man has a capacity to commit and contribute to the process of the survival of human beings. The material of the earth given by the power that created it, we as human beings and the abilities that we have to do with that other stuff that has been given, that we might survive. And not just live, but to really live. Now that's what I've always wanted to tell you, that in order to survive, you need food, clothing, and shelter. You need that, even from the sun. You need education, so you don't have to stay in ignorance. You need health care, so you get sick, you can get well, hopefully. And in order for you as an individual to meet these needs that I just described, you got to work. It's not going to come to you. You can't sit on your tail and be educated. Just, you know, you got to move around, observe, see what's going on. You can't eat just sitting down wishing it. You got to go out there and find out what's going on. You got to take care of some business. And all of that means you're doing something. But the fact that you're not in the world alone, we got 300 million in America. They say we got close to 7 billion across the planet. That means that whatever work that you are required to do, so does everyone else. But in order to do it so you're not stepping on everybody's toes, people work together. There is a certain number of people in America, out of the 300 million, that would be responsible for what? For food and clothing. Everything in the whole process. There's another group of people in America that's responsible for shelter. Whatever buildings need to be built, whether it's a building for business, a building for a bridge, whatever needs to be built, there's another group of people in America to take care of that. For education, there's a group of people in America that's responsible, that's designed to be responsible for educating all Americans. There's another group of people in America that's responsible for health care. Not everybody taking care of all these different things, but a group of people taking care of these specific things for all the people. And the people that's taking care of these specific things are people who enjoy doing just that. Now, you can't tell a man who loves to teach or a woman who loves to teach that there's something better for them. There's nothing better for them than teaching. So, now you got all of that met. But you got other needs. You got people who need to dig ditches. You got people who need to clean toilets. You got people who need to do all kinds of things who are just right there waiting to do it. Get out of the way so I can do it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's how the design was made. That's the blueprint. What happens? There's peace. There's prosperity for everybody. There's joy in life. Why is there joy? Because your dreams are being met. And you are just doing a small part of it. The rest of it is coming from the rest of society. You're just doing a small part of it. The rest of it is coming from the rest of society. You don't just have yourself or your family now. You got the whole doggone nation working with you to make your dream come true, to make you have purpose in life. The whole nation. Then somebody come up and you think about what has happened. Now you can't respond to people. You can't respect people. Why? Because somebody has tricked you with money and told you that you don't need one another. All you need is money. So rather than depending upon one another, depend on me, the boss, the man who with the money, who creates the jobs. What jobs? The job that you do already. The job that you do to make sure that you survive. We've taken over those jobs. And you can't do those jobs because we've taken over with authority. We've gotten people so divided that they have given us authority to do this. Now they've given us authority to use money so we can pay you for doing our jobs. Now they're no longer your jobs. They're our jobs. And what is it for? It's to give us power over you, because this money doesn't mean anything but what we have told you that it means. And now you out there doing what you used to do because you love it. You're now in jobs that you don't love. You're just out there working your butt off from sun up to sundown, trying to make a few dollars, and they are trying to pay you as little as they possibly can. That's why we had Mexicans coming over here, so we didn't have to pay them but a dime on the dollar. That's why you have anybody coming in as refugees, so you can work their butt off for nothing. You might give them a little health care on the side. All of that doesn't cost you a darn thing. But you, the people, think it does, because you've been led to believe that it does. Because they want you to know that these people are your problem. Why? Because we don't need them now. We need you to work for a little or nothing. And all of this brotherhood, all of this we the people has gone out of the door. Everything we do now is for money. We can't even play sports and enjoy ourselves because money is there. And when we find out that there might be something that needs some attention so we can correct it, we throw up in your face, you making them money. You don't have the right to stand up. You don't have the right to defend this cause. Why? Because you're a slave that's being paid. And people bag that up. People tell you, get in line. You getting paid. Don't nobody care because niggas are getting killed out there by cops. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's how we're going to keep the civilization down. Make sure that a bunch of you black people either in jail or dead. Or, when I say I'm not just talking about blacks, I'm talking about people of color. And you feel your little white trash and you can't put up with it, you take the same road as the black. That's the word, that's the way of the world today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sitting up here. Somebody want me to come to church, and I'm going to sit up in the church and tell people Jesus Christ is the Son of God. That Jesus came on this earth to let you know that there's another world, there's another way, God's way. And tell you that you killed Jesus. And then allow you to tell me that you didn't kill Jesus, that Jesus never existed. And so now you got a whole disbelief about Jesus, no Jesus. But everything else is going. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, when the tsunamis come, what do the people do? They die if they're not out of the way. Ain't nothing they can do. When the hurricanes come, if you're not out of the way, many of you die, not all of you. When the fires come, oh, they're terrible now. I don't think they've been this bad in a long time. But they're telling me they're wiping out towns, communities, thousands of houses and businesses and stuff. And it's not a doggone thing that those people that's in the shadows can do to stop it. There's not a doggone thing that the politicians can do to stop it. There's not a doggone thing that you can do to stop it under the present conditions. So that means that there's another power running around doing things that you can't stop. So you ought to start thinking that you may be, just maybe, not in charge of things. You might be able to recognize that your money might not be just good enough to save you. So you might just decide that you should go back to the original plan. The original plan is for each of us to look after one another. To each of us look after one another. Black folks looking after white people looking after black people, and all the people in between being looked after by one another. That are eating, that are sleeping. All of this is based upon our commitment to a career that produces this. All of it. That's the master's plan. And you let a doggone stinking tail, two-legged man walk around here and tell you what he's going to do. I'm going to cut this amount of money out. Why? Because I'm God now. And those of you I don't like, you don't need that much health care. You don't need that much education. You don't need that much Social Security when you're old and dying. You don't need all of this. We need all of this. We need more bonds to hide our stuff. Because we are the greatest. And you people go along with it. I watch people on the internet. They're talking about all the problems. All of the problems. And I keep saying it's time to stop talking about the problems. I'm sure every last one of us know what the problem is, but we don't know what the solution is. And people who talk about a solution, I don't hear them on the internet. I don't hear them on the news. I don't hear them in the newspapers. I don't hear them anywhere, but I know they're out there. I know they're out there because I'm out there. You don't read about me in the newspaper. When I commit a crime and go to jail, you don't read about me in the newspaper. Why? Because my message is real. My message is genuine. You, whoever you are, if you're poor and can't go to a doctor, I want you to know that that's not God's plan. That's a man's plan. You going along with it. You're hungry. You can't feed yourself or your kids. That's not God's plan. That's man's plan, and you're going along with it. You can't take care of your kids. They're being taken away from you, putting in somebody else's hand for a while, giving somebody a job, like they made the prisons to give people jobs, made the prison to keep people in because they can't, because their rules and regulations set up by the system does not include them, does not protect them, so they take the law in their own hand and do what they got to do. You take the folks' kids and will give them to adoption, give them to, somebody got them, keeping them for you, and you would give them all kinds of money. And the parents, you wouldn't give them a darn dime. And if you did, it was a darn dime. Well, what do you expect? This is the way of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so tired of telling you that God is real. I'm so tired of telling you to trust God. I'm so tired, so tired, so tired, so tired, so tired, so tired. Woo! I'm so darn tired. Excuse me. And so, Americans sold out. What did you get for selling out? You got positions. Some of you got to be generals in the military. Some of you got to be admirals. Some of you got to be captains. All kinds of positions. Some of you got to be directors of the CIA, the FBI, and all those different, what you call security agencies. Some of you got to be in charge of businesses and judges and lawyers. But now in every position that you got, there are some stipulations that are different from the others. In every job you got, there's a stipulation required that you maintain the system, that you do not go outside of the system. And they got a few little protections within the system to make you think that you matter. But they got ways to go around all of those. And now today, in America, things are really going down the drain. And you got people projecting that the powers that be, the New World Order, has decided that they were going to take all money that we recognize as being money and crash it in 2018, so money won't have any value whatsoever, similar to what happened in Germany. So you won't be able to buy food, you won't be able to do this, you won't pay your house mortgage, you won't be able to do any of those things because you won't have money. So they have to come up with a different plan that traps you. And you're going to get trapped. You're going to get trapped. I call myself a fool and ask you to help me. But I know one thing, I'm not the only fool. But I did call myself a fool. And by me calling myself a fool, it gives me the authority to call you a fool. You are a damn fool. Why? You're a damn fool because you chose man over God. Now that doesn't mean that you got to turn your back on man because of God. No, it means that you can deal with man in a proper manner because you're being led by the Spirit of God. You're not being led by the Spirit of God, you deal with man in a worse manner. And here's the examples that let you know that you're doing it wrong. There's a lot of lying going on, a lot of cheating going on, a lot of stealing going on, a lot of killing going on, terrorism and wars going on. There's a lot of suffering, lack of education, a lot of suffering, lack of housing and adequate food and shelter, lack of education, lack of health. All of these things happen where God has been disrespected. Oh yes, now you might say, well, a lot of these things are happening. Yes, they are happening for the con artists. They are happening for the liars. They are happening for those who have tricked you to believe. It even happens for the preachers. They have tricked you to believe that they're telling you the truth. These jokers are lying to you, backwards and forward. How many of them have told you what I just told you? Not a single one of them. Not a single one of them have told you what I just told you. And you are caught up in the same old bag that everybody else is caught up in. But if you listen to people who told you about God's freedom, and you trusted God, you wouldn't be in this crap. So it makes it seem, ladies and gentlemen, to me, that the only way to escape this is to recognize the truth and stand up for the truth. That doesn't mean grab a gun, go try to kill anybody, make anybody do anything. But what it does, for those of you who don't know God that much, you can come up with a measure for defense. So when these crooks will come at you, you can defend yourself. And if you're righteous in your defense, you will always win. You can't be rubbing shoulders with them, trying to see how you can get some of that stuff into your system. No, no. You got to be sure that that junk isn't getting it in. And when you're sure, you stand up, you don't fight alone. God helps you to fight your battle. Why? Because he's fighting for righteousness. So let them come with you with a gun. You're going to win if you defend yourself. But if you know God that much, you just say, the heck with it. Let them kill you and get off this planet and leave it here for them. They're going to go through everything. I'm telling you, you would have escaped, but I know you're not going to do that. So I'm just hoping that they don't say something later on this evening, that they don't say something early tomorrow morning that got me getting back up trying to repeat something to you that I repeated 10 years ago and got it on the internet somewhere, or got it on MySpace somewhere, or got it on some CD or tape somewhere. I'm reminded, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to close. I went to a preacher's house. I was running for president, and the message that I was carrying is this: God is the true author of life. And as President of the United States, I want to assure the people, with your support, that your dreams can be met. That there is a process whereby everybody in this country can have food, clothing, and shelter. Not no thrown together stuff, but stuff, the best stuff that can be made. You're not making this China stuff that lasts a week and tear up so you can buy it again. No, making stuff that's well put together. I told the people who would listen that education would be unlimited and unrestricted. I told them that health care would be there from the womb to the grave. And I told them that they wouldn't have to worry about a job because they would be there for them, a beautiful job. That's what I told them. But there was another power that said, to heck with that. I got the money. I can hire these people to work the campaigns. He has nobody working for him. And in a dollar, you jump, you jump, you jump. And so when you find people out there selling drugs for money because they can't experience their dreams, when you see people out there selling their body, prostituting or gigoloing because the system denied them their dreams, and they're doing all these things, and the system says we need more police, we need more jailers, we need more jails, and we need to privatize them. All that kind of stuff. Just robbing the life out of the human beings. And the human beings allow this to happen because they don't have God. And all them little pimping preachers walk around there with their hair all fine and running their finger through their hair like this and talk about God's love or telling you what they did. And it ain't nothing, ladies and gentlemen, but BS. That's all it is, straight up BS. So what am I saying? I'm saying that any church that you go to, today is Thursday, 2 more days, Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday come up. Any church you go to, you might well be a casino. You might as well be at a whorehouse. You might well be at a dope house, because you're not getting anything that's good. You're getting a lie. A lie. Even when they try to preach you out of the Bible, you're getting a lie because they don't know what they're talking about. And I don't have to bite my tongue. All you got to do is walk out of your door or turn on your TV. What do you think they spend the rest of all of your life doing when you've been watching TV? They've been teaching you how to be a crook. They've been teaching you all this evil stuff of the devil. They haven't been teaching you not one darn thing about righteousness. Even when they got teaching you about crookery and they got a police out there, all that stuff go hand in hand. All of it go hand in hand. A policeman does not cause people to act right or treat people right. No. That's just a part of the plan. To treat people right, I mean, you got to take out that stuff that robs them. Well, 44 minutes is a long time. I don't think many of you listened to it that long. But if you did, I'm sure that when you get through, you're wondering what the hell you spend this much time watching a video because you didn't get a darn thing out of it. I know you didn't because you never do. Bye-bye.